So I saw Shelby Oaks, which is the directional debut from Chris Stuckmann, the popular movie YouTube critic. And a lot of videos talking about Shelby Oaks are more so reviewing Chris Stuckmann as a person and a critic versus talking about the actual movie. And half the video is really a review of Shelby Oaks. The other half is just shitting on Chris Stuckmann. And I'm not going to talk about him for half the video, but I do think I have to be the 17th, 100th person to talk about how Chris Stuckmann was a big part of my childhood. Because for those of you that don't know, I used to make videos about movies back in high school when I got no views but had a bunch of friends. We would all make videos together just reviewing movies because that's what I like to do. I grew up watching Chris Stuckmann, Jahns, Schmoes Know, pretty much it. We're by far my favorite crew out of all those people. I like to talk about movies. I want to make movies one day, so obviously I connect with this journey a lot. And I know Chris Stuckmann has got a lot of heat over the past few years. Apparently he stopped reviewing movies he didn't like, and that made a lot of people really upset for some reason. In my opinion, if it's your YouTube channel, you do whatever you want with it. I don't think I would go down that route, but I understand why somebody would. But I'm also somebody, like, I was born and raised in South Jersey around like Philly sports teams. Those are the most brutal people in the world. Everyone is brutally honest no matter what. Like if one of my friends made a movie and I didn't like things about it, I'm going to tell them I didn't like things about it, but not everyone is like that. And I think that's fine. That idea has made a lot of people really hate Chris Stuckmann. And I'm not going to pretend like I still watch a lot of his videos. This is going to sound like I'm shitting on him in this analogy, but I promise I'm not. It's like how I loved SpongeBob growing up as a kid. Like, I think SpongeBob is objectively a really good show. I don't watch it that much anymore, but like, it is a crucial piece of my childhood. Chris Stuckmann is like kind of like that, you know, like I would not be making videos if people like him never made videos at all. I think it's awesome that somebody of his caliber is out there actually making movies. He's not the first YouTuber to make a movie, but in terms of like movie critics that grew up in that YouTube sphere, like he is kind of building a foundation for a lot of those kinds of people. And it feels like everybody made up their mind about this movie before even watching it. The only two people I could think that gave a pretty fair analysis from what I've seen is Lee from Drum Dums, who is a fan of Chris Stuckmann and didn't like the movie. And then a buddy of mine, Jack, who also has a YouTube channel. These are two guys that like Chris Stuckmann, didn't like the movie, and I think actually talk about why they didn't like the movie. Every other take I've seen has been some sort of, I love Chris Stuckmann, the movie is really, really good, or I hate Chris Stuckmann and this is the worst movie of the year. And I think both groups are kind of annoying, but I'm a little more annoyed at the group that is shitting on him for no reason, especially the people that make this movie review on why this movie is so bad. And they're like, me as a filmmaker myself who have made shitty short films, they think they know what they're talking about. Like they have made something on this level. And listen, I've made short films in college and I plan on making more short films throughout this YouTube career that I can't wait to share with you guys. But I'm not going to fucking pretend like I know how to make a $1 million movie here. And some of these people, the delusion on this website, and I've been making movie reviews for a long time, right? Like 10 years off and on. I have to do it more consistently, I know. But the delusion of a lot of these people in 2025 is absolutely bonkers. They're putting out these movie reviews of Shelby Oaks and they're like, yeah, you know, like this movie is such a piece of shit. It's not like my movie. And then they show clips from theirs and I go and click the link to watch their film. And I'm like, oh my God, this person is just a psychopath. If I showed their footage of their short films or their feature films in this YouTube video, I think they would send me a cease and desist. And there's nothing wrong with making something bad. I've never made anything good. And to be fair, I expected Shelby Oaks to be bad. If I was putting money on it, if my checking account was on the line, is Shelby Oaks, the directional debut from Chris Stuckmann, going to be good or bad? I would lean more towards bad because I saw his last short film that he put out a few years ago. I watched it and I was like, oh yeah, this is not good. And even though raising $1 million on Kickstarter is super impressive, that is a lot of money, I still expected Shelby Oaks to be like a straight to Redbox looking kind of movie. And then I remember when the movie Together came out, they played a trailer for this right before it. And at first I didn't realize it was Shelby Oaks. And then you see the tape say Shelby Oaks and I was like, holy shit, this is Chris Stuckmann's movie. And it looked like a real movie, which really surprised me. Making the point of, oh my God, this movie looks like a movie is a ridiculous point to make, but it's only ridiculous if you haven't seen all of these other YouTubers attempt to make a movie before, because they say they're making movies and they're making these long YouTube sketches. And this is not a half-assed YouTube quality movie. Like this is a film. But just because I don't hate Chris Stuckmann as a person doesn't mean I'm going in ready to hate the movie. And just because I liked him growing up doesn't mean I did want the movie to be good. I want every movie I see to be good. And overall, there are a lot of different points to make about this movie, but I would say this is a solid film. And I'm not somebody that's like, oh, it's solid because of the budget, it's solid because of this. I take everything into account, right? It kind of reminds me, if you saw my video of The Smashing Machine, The Smashing Machine felt like a good movie that felt incomplete, and I feel pretty similarly about Shelby Oaks, although I did enjoy Shelby Oaks more than The Smashing Machine. So what is Shelby Oaks about, for those of you that don't know? The basic premise is this woman goes missing. She is part of this group of YouTubers that do all these ghost hunting activities. They're called the Paranormal Paranoids. Chris, if we could start with my first complaint, please come up with some better names. I know it's of the time, but it is just such a shitty name for a group of YouTubers. But who am I to talk? My old YouTube name was A Few Mixed Reviews. It's like, God, that's so original. So this entire group of YouTubers goes missing, and Riley, who I guess is like the star of the show, has like this cryptic ending video. You've seen it in a million movies before, where it's kind of unconfirmed if she could still be out there or not. And then we follow her sister in the present day trying to piece together some old footage to figure out what happened to her sister and try and put all the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, if that is the kind of horror movie that doesn't sound up your alley, I don't think Shelby Oaks is going to be for you. I do think there are some valid negative reviews. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is an undeniably great movie, right? Like, I see this not being for a lot of people. And I promise you, I'm not just saying this because Chris Stuckmann made it, but this is the kind of horror movie that tends to get under my skin. Like, the more supernatural things, use of found footage, that you could see some things in the background that you could piece together. Like, that whole concept is so up my alley. And they do something interesting with it. So the film starts off like it is a fictional documentary, right? Like, you're seeing the footage from Riley, then you're seeing the modern day documentary crew interviewing her sister. You kind of are under the impression that the whole movie is going to play out this way. And then probably around the 20th minute, something happens and the perspective shifts. And that shift in perspective is done really well. I think a lot of people would argue the first 30-ish minutes of the movie are the best parts of the movie. And I think even I would probably agree with that. Even if Chris does rip off a jump cut from Hereditary, I still think he does a solid job with it. And from that point on, as soon as like the title sequence starts, I was like, okay, I'm locked in. I am excited to see where we go from here. And I mentioned earlier how I like this kind of horror movie. I like when things are hidden in the background and it's up to the viewer to find something, you know, like Toni Collette being in the corner of the frame in Hereditary, and one person in the theater laughs and you're like, why are they laughing? And then you see it and you're like, oh shit. This movie does that a few times in two different ways though. Like, I think the more obvious one is when Mia is watching a lot of these tapes and the edit tells you where the thing is. Like, unless you're blind, you can see it's like, oh, we're zooming in on this part of the screen. Like, clearly I see this thing right there. And Chris does do a good job with putting those in the movie, but there are other ones in the second half of the film. There are 2 points in particular where there is like a wide shot or it's on a character's face and there's something blurred in the background. And there are 2 times I saw something that he put in that frame, unless I am delusional. And I laughed because I saw it, but no one else in my theater did. And I wasn't in an empty theater. Like, half of the room was full. And I'm sure there's a lot of people shitting on this movie and they're acting like they are Stanley Kubrick and they know how to make a film themselves. And I bet your ass they didn't catch every single thing that Chris put in this movie. I know Mike Flanagan hopped on as an executive producer. My favorite thing that Mike Flanagan does, besides Midnight Mass, great show. But the thing I like the most that he did with Hill House, and I know he's done it a couple times with some of his other shows, are the hidden ghosts that are in the background. And it's kind of hard to tell how much influence Mike Flanagan here. Like, I know Chris made the movie, it premiered, Neon bought it, and then Mike Flanagan came in as an executive producer. Or maybe those last 2 things were flipped. But I know they reshot a good amount of the film. You could tell which parts have a lot of special effects. I'm sure that was part of the reshoots. But I do wonder how many of those hidden scares Mike Flanagan was involved in. But I wouldn't be surprised if Chris put them in himself, because I know he's a big fan of Mike Flanagan and he's clearly inspired by his work a lot here. And I think he blocks all of those specific scare scenes really well. Those are the ones that are stuck in my head. Those are the ones I'm thinking about. There are a lot of shitty jump scares in this movie. I shit on that for every movie. It could be one of those things where he was like, listen, I just got to put jump scares in my movie. But yeah, I would have avoided it. And other things that I am biased to being scared by: old women. Old people in general, but creepy old women specifically, are just like my kryptonite when it comes to horror movies and life. Paranormal Activity 3 was the scariest movie of my teenage years. I swear to God, that was the movie that made me sleep with the light on for a while. And it was all because of fuck-ass old people. And Robin Bartlett plays one of them in this movie. She doesn't have a major role, but I do think she's really good in the moments that she has. I think a lot of the acting here is really solid. Camille Sullivan is the main star as Mia here. She is the one driving pretty much this entire film. And again, when you have $1 million budget, you do not have a lot of A-list options here, right? But you're watching this woman and you're like, holy shit, like this woman should be a star. She is so good here. Very, very good. Every single thing she had to do in this strip, she sold me on. I think she's very impressive. I have not seen her in anything else. Best in Show has been on my watch list forever, but she kind of borderline blew me away with how good she was, especially with the material that she's kind of working around. A lot of people have been shitting on the acting in the film overall. I don't really agree. I think she's great. I think pretty much everyone else is really good, except the guy that plays her husband. I thought he was kind of cringy in the few scenes that he has, but the movie rides or dies on Camille's shoulders, and I think she kind of knocked it out of the park. And I mentioned the writing and the material she has to work with. It seems like the reason everyone hates this movie is because the writing is so bad. That is what everyone keeps saying. And I would just like to ask those people, what about it is like the worst thing ever? And before I get into the things I'm going to defend about that, I got to make the point of the biggest problem I have with this movie is that in terms of writing, in terms of developing the story, this still feels like the first draft. It just feels like they have been working on this movie for like 4 or 5, probably 10 years at this point. They've been trying to get this thing together. And you would think this entire thing would be baked already, right? That there would be so many developed sequences, and there are sequences here that are developed, but that the transition between them would be super clean. And I think it is super clean in those first 30 minutes. I think that's why so many people are praising that part of the movie. And then kind of after that, it gets to the point where it's like, oh my God, we got to go to this place. And then it just becomes like, got to go to this place, got to go to this place, figured something out, go here, ending. You know, like it doesn't feel smooth at all in that second half. So if we're talking about that part of writing, then yeah, I agree. That should definitely be a lot more developed. But in terms of writing dialogue and in terms of creating a creepy atmosphere, I think Chris did a really solid job. And I know he wrote it with his wife, so that I think they both did a pretty damn good job in that department. Because I see so many movies, especially in this genre, where I think it's so easy to make it corny real quick. And I understand if you don't think this movie is that scary, but I don't think many people would argue this is a corny movie where you're listening to it and you're like, why did you put that joke in there? How did that make it past anybody in any room of production? And this movie doesn't have any of that. I think it has some decent lines. Is it the most amazing writing ever? No. But I think it has really decent to solid lines being delivered by really decent to solid to really good performers. And there was never a line that like broke my immersion. And I think the way people are talking about the writing of this movie, I'm like, you have no clue what you're talking about. And these same people talk about One Battle After Another, a really good movie. A movie I still have to make a video about, but spoiler alert, the hype around it has been so preposterous in my mind, where people are acting like this is in the top 10 movies of the last 25 years and the screenplay is bulletproof. When that film has like 5 or 6 lines that made me roll my eyes, I thought they were so bad. I was like, really? You put that line in the movie? Now, One Battle After Another definitely has a better screenplay than Shelby Oaks. It's a much better movie than Shelby Oaks. But I'm just so sick of watching these people just be so contradictory. Just be specific, you know? Like, what about the writing did you like or did you not like? You know what I didn't like about the Shelby Oaks script? Paranormal Paranoids. Terrible name, like I said. But I would say the writing is solid. It's definitely better than the Batman versus Superman scene that he rewrote and Twitter destroyed him for it. I still remember that day. I felt so bad for him. But again, it's just like these people reviewing his movie now. Be careful when you go on the internet and say, man, I could do this so much better, because I promise it will come back to bite you in the ass. In terms of other things I didn't like about Shelby Oaks, there is a use of CGI in quite a few scenes, and I think it looks pretty bad. The dogs in particular, we did not need. They come up a couple times, and every time I was like, Chris, come on, man. I was so into this. We don't have to go down this route. And I think the creature design overall, when it's more hidden, is creepy. And what I mean by that is like, it's the classic example of show, don't tell, right? Like, I don't think you should show the monster monster as much as possible. Leave that to the imagination for as long as you possibly can. And this movie does that for a little bit. And even when it shows you things, it's just like glimpses in the background of a video. And if it had stayed like that until like the very end of the movie or something, I think it would have been a lot more effective. But it gets to the point where you're seeing this monster so many times and you're like, okay, we could relax a little bit. But I think he uses that use of the monster effectively a few times. Like there's specifically a scare involving a TV that made the guy behind me go like, oh shit. And that's the kind of stuff you want from a horror movie, right? And overall, like this did an effective job of creeping me out for 2 days after I saw it. It's not my favorite horror movie of the year. It's not even close. Like something like Weapons is definitely in a league of its own over this, but that's okay. I mean, this is somebody's first movie. There's not a lot of times where you get like a Citizen Kane or a Reservoir Dogs or a Hereditary level of directional debut, right? Like those are three unbelievable movies made by three of the most iconic directors ever. Chris Stuckmann is not one of the most iconic directors ever. Will he be one day? I wouldn't put my money on it, but I do think he could have a solid career in Hollywood. And statistically, a lot of people get better as they keep making things. If this was my directional debut, I would be like, you know what? I did a good enough job. Maybe part of the reason I haven't made as many films is because I'm not like that. I'm more of a perfectionist and I gotta stop that. But to me, this is a solid 6 out of 10 movie. And on this channel, a 6 out of 10 is a good score. I would tell people to go support this in theaters for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a solid horror movie. I took my girlfriend. She had a good time with it. Also, selfishly, if I'm being honest, I would love to take this path one day. In 10 years, if I could do something like this, I would be pretty damn proud of myself. And it starts with me being consistent on YouTube, which I've been terrible at over the last 10 years. Hopefully trying to change that over the next 10. And I think Chris should be super proud of himself. I can't wait to see what he does next. If he continues horror, if he goes some other direction. It's not going to make my top 30 or 40 movies of the year probably, but I do think it is a solid one that I was happy to see in 2025. And if some of these other movie reviewers on YouTube actually start making their own movies as well, I hope they're good, but I will not forget your reviews. So this is Chase. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I got more videos coming out that I am very late on. So if you're into that, be sure to subscribe, and I hope you have an awesome day.